Hello everyone! This game here, it's basically a story of a magician taming a dragon. It was played in 1988 in Chicago, and Mikhail Tal has the white pieces against Robert Forbes. I couldn't find any additional information on Robert Forbes, so the hoodie guy is back. We haven't had him in a while. If any of you can, get any information on who this person might be, do share in the comments, and I will add any info you can provide in the description below. So for many of you who are big fans of the pirate like myself, you've probably already seen this game. But for those of you who are maybe new to chess and new to the Magician of Riga, Mikhail Tal, you will find this game immensely enjoyable. So let's see this game. Tal has the white pieces and he goes for e4. We have c5 by Robert Forbes, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, d6, d4. C captures, knight captures, and knight to f6. Knight to c3, and we have g6, the dragon variation of the Sicilian. Bishop to e3, bishop to g7 now, and f3, preparing the Yugoslav attack. Knight to c6, we have queen to d2, black castles, and now bishop to c4. Here we have knight to d7, preparing to transfer the knight to the queen side. And Tal goes for the attack immediately. He plays h4. We have knight to b6, attacking the bishop on c4, bishop to b3, retreating, and now knight to a5. Forbes has the right idea. He wants to exchange his knight for this beautiful bishop on b3 that is slicing all the way to the king. Tal ignores this. There is really nothing he can do. You can't save the bishop. He plays h5, trying to break open the dh file, so dh file will be available for the rook. Knight b to c4 now. Not going for the light square bishop, but he decided to go for this nice fork, attacking the queen and the dark square bishop, as the dark square bishop is even more powerful in this variation, since in most cases white will want to play bishop to h6, exchange the dark square bishop, and then you have the open h file. Queen is coming to h6. This will be excellent for white. So by playing knight to c4, the queen has to move, and the dark square bishop will be captured next move. Queen to e2, knight captures on e3, queen captures on e3, and here you have a couple of options. You can go for some slow play like e6, you can go bishop d7, and there's even an interesting idea of developing a queen with tempo against the knight on d4, but unfortunately this doesn't work. For example, knight to d5 is coming. You can give up this piece actually. Queen captures on d4, knight captures on e7, an in-between move, king h8, and now queen captures on d4, bishop captures, and h captures on g6. Now the threat is rook captures on h7, checkmate, so you have to capture it, and now comes knight captures on g6. King there, knight captures, king captures, and after you castle, you have quite a lot of compensation for your exchange. He does have two pieces for your rook, but these pawns will be incredible. You have a threat from your rook to the bishop. Also, this rook is prepared to capture on h7. The position is much better for white. So after queen to e3, of course not queen to b6 like we mentioned, knight captures on b3 is played, grabbing both of Tal's bishops. A captures on b3, bishop to d7, and now a queenside castle. We have e6 now and f4. Tal pushes forward. Queen to b6, now kind of pinning this knight since the queen is undefended on e3. Tal pushes even further, f5. We have g captures on f5 and e captures on f5. And this is it's a very complicated position to deal with when you're playing with the black pieces. Here, e captures on f5 doesn't really work. Knight is coming to d5, and again you will have a lot of threats here for white. But after e captures on f5, there is the option of going e5, and e5 is a very interesting variation for black. For example, h6, bishop to f6, but now knight to e4, again threatening to capture the bishop with check. d5 now the queen is protecting the bishop on f6, knight captures, queen captures, and knight to f3, attacking the e5 pawn. So it's a pretty complicated position. White is somewhat better, but perhaps black could hold this. But after e captures on f5, black decided not to capture, not to push e5, he played king to h8. and not allowing any future knight to d5, knight to e7 with check. Also now the rook can come to g8 to help with the defense. Tal played rook h to f1 now to add protection to the f5 pawn. Now if pawn captures, knight can capture easily. Bishop to d4 now, and this is the idea. What he was expecting is queen captures on d4, and after queen captures, rook captures on d5, and it's a pretty good position for black. For both white and black. I mean, black bishop on d7 isn't really doing anything. All of the pawns are on light squares, but perhaps something like b6, bishop c8, followed by bishop a6 can be played in the future. This bishop will gain some activity later. But after bishop captures on d4, Tal had a different idea. Tal played rook captures on d4. Here we have e5, and it seems now the rook has to move either to d3 or to e4 to protect the queen, and it seems like Mr. Robert Forbes is able to exchange queens against Tal, but such is not the case. Tal plays queen to h6. And what do you play here? Well, it's not really clear how does white continue the attack after black captures rook, and it wasn't really clear for Robert Forbes, so he captured it. Queen captures rook on d4. And here Tal played queen to f6 with check. Only move is king to g8, and now comes knight to d5. And this is a beautiful move. The threat, of course, is knight to e7, and this will be checkmate. And there is a big problem here. If you play queen captures knight, the knight is actually deflecting the queen from being able to defend. Now comes queen g5 check, king to h8, and after h6 there is no defense against queen to g7 checkmate. If you try rook g8, simply queen to f6, the king has nowhere to go, only move is rook g7, and now queen captures on g7, this is checkmate. So after this knight to d5 move, black actually has a move that can save him. Robert Forbes wasn't able to find this move, but we'll get back to this position. He tried rook f to e8, making room for the king on f8, and also now the rook is guarding e7. Tal played queen to g5 check, king to h8, and now h6. Now Tal is threatening queen to g7 checkmate. So this has to be stopped. e4, now the queen is also protecting g7, and here comes f6 by Tal. Now the queen is no longer protecting g7, and queen to g7 checkmate is again a threat. Robert played rook to g8, defending checkmate, but here comes the Dragon Slayer. Tal plays queen to g7, and it's all over. The king has nowhere to go, only move is rook captures queen, which was played, rook captures, h captures, king to g8 only move, and now comes knight to e7, and this is checkmate. So this is beautiful. This is what I like to see. You know, they often asked Bobby Fischer about what he thought about the purse defense or defending with the Dragon Sicilian. Bobby often said that it makes no sense. White will simply play f3, g4, h4, and black resigns the game. Well, this isn't the case when someone very strong uses those defenses, but you know, it seems that when you're playing against Tal, it often is the case. But like I said, there was a moment after this knight to d5, this brilliancy by Tal, where black had one moment where he could play a better move and maybe defend this position. So, you know, do check out the position. I will give you a couple of seconds if you want to pause the video to find a move that saves black. So, those are the seconds. And for those of you who found it, congratulations. It's not a very straightforward move. The idea how black saves this is actually h6, and this is actually creating a square for king on h7. So if you try knight to e7, this is actually losing for white. If knight to e7 check, king h6, king h7, now you have to play something. You don't really have a way to continue this attack after knight to g6. Okay, you can't capture the knight, but black can simply play bishop to c6. And after knight captures, rook captures, there is no way for white to continue this attack, and there is no compensation for the piece. Everything is guarded. The white pawns are actually blocking white from making any improvements, and the queen can't really do anything here. So the idea after h6 is you can't play knight to e7 check, so white would have to capture the h6 pawn. But now the queen can capture the knight on d5 because there is no h6 threat. So after something like rook to f3, threatening rook g3, there is f6. And now you're creating an escape route for the king. King f7, king e7, for example, king d8, king c7, and white can't really allow this. Rook g3 doesn't work, so white in this position would have to take the perpetual check with queen g6, king h8, queen h6, king g8, queen g6 check. So yeah, but this is a case in pretty much every tile game. You have that one chance where you can defend properly. If you miss that, then everything goes. Then it's tiles happy hunting ground. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. I would like to thank Adam Levar, Abdallah El Guindi, and Remy T. Rivera for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.